call the regular meeting of Howell Township Board to order. Roll call.
Mike Coddington,
Here.
Sue Doss,
Here.
Jonathan Hohenstein,
Here.
Matt Counts,
Here.
Bob Wilson,
Here.
Tim Bowl,
Here.
Shane Fagan.
Here.
Please join me in the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call to the board. Any additions or subtractions to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support. Motion by Counts, second by Hohenstein. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of January 13th.
Move to accept the minutes from January 13th as presented.
Support.
Motion by Hohenstein, seconded by
Bull.
Bull. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oppose. I always oppose your minutes.
Okay, thank you. Call to the public. Okay, seeing none. Unfinished business, Howell Mason LLC versus Howell Township.
So I mean, these are just the court documents that the board has requested go in the packet so they can see them. That's it.
Okay. Storage container ordinance.
You'll remember from last meeting, we discussed the storage container ordinance, but we wanted some language regarding the temporariness of the portable storage containers, things like pods. So the last page of this section are options that staff came up with and other members. In the last one on there is the one provided by the township planner.
You're talking the modifying section 4.4?
No, keep going. It'll be the very last page. It'll say portable storage containers,
Okay.
draft temporary language. So the last item on there is the one that the planner provided. The rest are from staff or members of other boards.
So you're looking to take these back, or are you looking for?
So, I mean, what I would look for is for the board to pick one or craft their own. And then we would approve the ordinance because we didn't really have any other issues with it last time. So I'd assume that still stands. So I would say to move the ordinance with this additional language included.
Okay, thoughts?
Mr. Supervisor,
Yes.
as I understand, the Planning Commission has recommended to get a bid on redoing the whole ordinance book, basically. So I just wonder if our time is well spent pushing these couple ordinances through at this time, the AD ordinance, planning, or the shipping container ordinance, and anything else of the wellhead protection ordinance, if we're getting ready to look at the whole scope of the ordinance. So that was just my one thought on pushing any ordinance through tonight.
Okay. Any other thoughts, concerns, suggestions?
Mr. Chair, there was a concern with the language for pets. Was that clarified, Jonathan?
The language for what?
The pets and the storage containers?
So that was a comment from the county.
Correct.
And as last time we discussed, it was, I think they're misunderstanding the additional requirements that are in there.
Okay.
Yeah, for the storage containers. Then And I will make a motion to accept the zoning ordinance amendments to allow portable storage containers and cargo containers, and to include the township planner's draft language for the duration of portable storage containers as presented.
Is there support? Support. Motion by Hohenstein, second by Count. Discussion? And does this need to be a resolution? Does? It's an ordinance. It's not, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Move on to new business, financial audit. That microphone will pick you up, so when it's recorded, they'll be able to hear what you're saying
All right,
also.
sounds good. Good evening. I thank the board for the opportunity to be here tonight. And we started the audit process. I should mention my name is Joe Verlin from Gabridge and Company. Brett provided us with a set of financial statements, and we requested, numerous documents in order to be able to confirm and verify the numbers. What matters more than anything else on this 46-page report can be found on, I think it's page 3 of the PDF. It's that second paragraph down. So we received the financial statements, confirmed the numbers provided to us with supporting schedules. We reached out to the county, the state of Michigan, the township's banks. Everything was verified, and accordingly, we wrote, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the township as of June 30, 2024. So that's referred to as this is a clean opinion on your financial statements. It means your controls are effectively designed, they're properly operating to allow you to produce accurate, timely, verifiable financial statements. It should always be the township's goal to get a clean opinion on your financial statements. But it does mean something to achieve it. We've had much larger organizations that can't stand behind their numbers, and they get either a qualified or an adverse opinion. So kudos to the staff for getting the clean opinion. I don't intend to cover all 46 pages. Hopefully that's not too upsetting to anyone. But certainly if there are questions along the way, I'm more than happy to answer them. So the next section that I take readers through will start on I think it'd be page 8 of the PDF, page 5 if you have the bound copy in front of you. Sorry, I think I had that backwards. If you go back, okay, right here. The first page is of the management discussion and analysis. I find this helpful because here we get financial highlights. There's 3 bullet points that kind of hit on some of the more important numbers within these financial statements. And then as we continue on through the management discussion and analysis, there's 2-year comparative schedules that kind of give you an idea for some of the trends that your finances are showing. And then there's narrative that explains reasons behind the changes in your assets and liabilities and revenues and expenses for the past 2 years. So starting with these financial highlights, the very first bullet point shows that theoretically, if the township decided to sell all of its assets and pay all of its liabilities, the difference would be $45,304,660. That's referred to as net position. In the corporate world, we would call that equity. Of course, the township has no intention of doing that, but it is a measure of looking at your financial condition over time. And what does matter is that very last number or the very last sentence in that first bullet point where it shows that the total net position increased by $2,361,734. So if a reader looks at these financial statements and asks, is the township better off financially at June 30, 2024 compared to June 30, 2023, the answer is yes, by $2,361,734. In the corporate world, we would call this net income. So your revenues exceed your expenses, means the township is operating at a sustainable level. This second bullet point down, now we're looking just at the governmental funds of the township. So we're excluding the water and sewer fund. We're looking primarily at the general fund. And the total fund balance at the end of the year came in at $8,034,878 across all three funds. That was an increase of $271,657. When we talk about fund balance, these are very immediate resources that the township has. Think of it as being checkbook accounting. So when you see your fund balance increase, it means that cash into the township exceeded cash out. I mean, it's not quite that perfect, but it's a pretty good representation of your cash flows. So an increase in fund balance essentially means your cash improved by $272,000. And then that last bullet point shows in your general fund, the unassigned fund balance. The unassigned fund balance is the most important element of fund balance. That's the amount that the township has available to cover the day-to-day cost of running the township. So you can use that for wages, utilities. If you've got a grant with a local match, those are the resources that the township had available at June 30, 2024. Came in at $6,960,842 as of June 30, 2024. Healthy fund balance. It's improving over time, and it gives you guys, plenty of buffer to cover the cost of running the township and any, matching requirements, one-time capital outlay expenditures, things of that nature. There are healthy reserves sitting in your unassigned fund balance as of the end of the year. If you go 3 more pages to page 8 of the printed copy. This shows comparative assets and liabilities. If you want to scroll down just a little bit, really just 2 items on this sheet that I wanted to point out. So the very top row, it's always nice to know how your cash and equivalents are doing. So if you go all the way to the very far right 2 columns, you can see June 30, 2023, the township had $5,009,470 of cash on hand compared to $7,559,901 of cash as of June 30, 2024. So about a $2.5 million increase in your cash and cash equivalents. We talked about your total net position increasing by a similar amount. That is the primary reason for your overall increase in cash and cash equivalents. Obviously, if your revenues exceed your expenses, it stands to reason that your cash is going to improve as well. And then if you go all the way down 2 rows up from the bottom, you can see the unrestricted net position for the township. So when we back off the non-spendable items, so the net investment in capital assets, the 4th row up, those are buildings, vehicles, equipment, things of that nature that the township can't spend, but it does represent an asset that's available. The unrestricted net position is the amount that the township has that has fewer constraints placed on it, and that came in at $21,527,496 compared to about $18.2 million as of June 30, 2023. So a healthy increase, not only in your cash and cash equivalents, your total net position, but your unrestricted net position is showing a healthy increase as well. If you go 1 more page to page 9 of the printed copy, just a couple rows that I wanted to highlight here. So if you scroll further down and get into the schedule, this shows comparative revenues and expenses for the past 2 years of the township. Charges for services showed an increase. So very top row, very far right column, $2,785,953 were your total charges for services during 2023. That compares to $3,140,105 as of June 30, 2024. And really the biggest reason for that increase was there was some land that was sold during 2024 that was picked up as in the charge for service category. If you look 5 rows up from the bottom, 6 rows up from the bottom, the total expenses basically were break even. So $4,194,627 during fiscal 23 compared to $4,187,282 in fiscal 24. And then 3 rows up for the bottom, the change in net position was a positive $1.26 million in fiscal 23 compared to a positive $2.36 million in fiscal 24. So back-to-back years with increasing total net position, just a sign that total net position is improving for the township. If you go down to page 18 of the printed copy, this shows the revenues and expenditures for the three funds of the township. And the very first column represents your general fund. So if you scroll just a little bit further down, you can see that the total increase in fund balance for your general fund came in 3 rows up for the bottom, $296,863 during the year. Your road fund had a small decrease of $27,981. And then the third governmental fund for the township is your ARPA fund. That showed a slight increase. Basically, it was investment income or interest income on your deposits, $2,775. And then across all three funds, the aggregate increase in fund balance came in at the $271,657. So your general fund had a very healthy increase. The road fund ebbs and flows, as road funds do. The years with increased road projects, you're going to see a decrease in fund balance. The years with less projects, you'll see an increase. So all together, whether we look at the long-term basis of accounting or the short-term basis of accounting, your financial position is improving. If you want to go now to page 39, we get into the required supplemental information section of the report. And just one real quick thing that I wanted to point out here. Page 41 of the PDF. Right there. So this is the budgetary comparison schedule for the township for the year ended June 30, 2024. And on the very far left column, as you scroll down, you can see that each one of those rows is a different department of the township. And then if you go all the way to the fourth column over, that shows whether or not each one of those departments came in at or below the budgeted amounts. And I just wanted to point out that every one of the township's departments came in under budget during the course of the year. There weren't any budget exceptions. And to me, that's just a good sign. One of the things that we look for when we assess, how actively and how strong are the controls at our clients. This means something. Coming in at or below budget means that the board and management are actively monitoring your finances throughout the course of the year. You're amending your budget when you see fit, and you're spending responsibly and making sure that you come in under budget. So. Again, just a good sign. And really, the only other thing that I wanted to point out, if you were to go to the very last page of the report, so the page numbering starts over, and then there's a side letter or a letter to governance are the last 3 pages here. I'm not necessarily pointing out what's in this letter versus what isn't included in this letter. So we don't include any, we don't provide any type of an opinion on the township's internal control, but we do look at your controls, and we look at how they're designed, and we test how effectively they're operating in the course of performing our audit. And if we see a control that we don't think is properly designed or not being effectively carried out on a day-to-day basis, we are required to put those in writing and bring those to the attention of the board. And I just wanted to point out here that there were no such findings. Nowhere in here does it say, hey, the township doesn't have any findings. We just don't include them as a finding. So the absence is as good of a report as you're going to find. So all the way around, clean opinion on your financial statements. Your financial condition is healthy, and no reportable findings to bring to the attention of the board. Those are the highlights that I've got, but I'm certainly happy to take any questions the board might have.
Have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I do have one.
Sure.
I'm new here, so I'm just,
Sure.
bear with me. So on page 33, the uninsured assets, I don't, of $7,251,581, is that pretty common?
Yes.
Okay.
So $250,000 that for every bank account that the township has at each financial institution, the first $250,000 gets insured. In a checking account, if the township has a savings account within the same financial institution, another $250,000 would be covered as well. and then everything else is uninsured. And that's what this footnote is pointing out. So one bank, $250,000 worth of checking is covered, $250,000 worth of savings is covered, the rest of it is uninsured. Very common for us to see that. The best response to that is to make sure that the township is continually evaluating the financial creditworthiness of your banking institution, and just making sure that you're comfortable. As long as you're comfortable with the financial standing of your bank, then there's nothing to worry about there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, move on to financial updates.
All right, so I have the revenue and expenditure report for Howell Township balance as of the last day of January, which is almost 60% of the fiscal year completed. Across this report for you new guys, this first column is the general ledger number, and then the corresponding description. This 24-25 budget is what was passed for July 1st. And so that's when this starts. So that year-to-date balance shows you what has been collected or spent from July 1 through January 31st of 2025. July 1st of 24, and this will go all the way through June 30th of 25. So we have a mid-year fiscal year. It's not the calendar year. Does that make sense? And then the percent budget used, so that kind of gives you measuring stick of where we are. So that first line item, general fund property taxes, this is what has been collected on the winter bill through January 31st. We have a month left to get that closer to 100%. The line item underneath there that says final payment, that is that land that was annexed by the city of Howell. We have been paid that 2 mills for the last 20 years, so this was the final year of that. Meaning next budget year, that's going to be a hole that we have to figure out how to fill. And for next year, the biggest thing that we are going to realize as we go down to the bottom of the revenues, where that comment says started CD in August. So a lot of that money that was put in the CD by the treasurer will, that interest will be paid in August of 25. So that will fall into next year, which kind of works out well for us because that will help backfill that annex, the millage that we will no longer get from the city of Howell. So all in all, we're in pretty good shape right now. We're 6% ahead of budgeted based on the fiscal year. So no worries there. Moving down through the expenditures. I'm looking for things that are north of 60%. And have a larger dollar item attached to it. So the first thing, if you go to page 2, the treasurer's postage, both the summer and winter bills have been mailed out, so now it would just be kind of delinquent bills at this point, so that's fine there. Under Department 257 assessing, where it says vacation time taken, the deputy assessor, to get her vacation hours down to, so the township allows you to roll 80 hours into the next year. And for payroll, we have to use the calendar year. That's the W-2s are based off of. We have to follow the federal schedule. So that's the same thing with vacation and personal time. So she used up a lot of her time in November, December to get down to that point. And kind of a fault of our payroll system is those vacation hours only come out of one bucket. So that's why this is a lot larger than her zoning job. Moving farther down, under elections, so we got the check back from the state in October for the February primary, and Tanya worked very hard to get that back for us. So that's $19,000 that we received in October, so that definitely knocked those expenditures down quite a bit. So that's why even in an election year, it looks pretty good. Under Township Hall, utility director wages, this was Jonathan's vacation payout, the 30 hours to get him back to 80. And like I just mentioned about the deputy assessor, because this was his primary pay code, those hours went against this. I have switched it to zoning administrator because that is his major. So going forward, that will be correct, but that's why you see the 77% there. Farther down, these are annual expenses. BSNA, we pay annually for their maintenance. The insurance we pay annually. Farther down on page 3, we have a breakdown of at-large legal expense. I'll talk about that at the end when we get there. The at-large drain expense, we will pay that at settlement. That's when the tax season is over. We have to settle up with the county or the drain commission. The category underneath that, that's the microphones and speakers and everything that's in here. So that $13,489 completed that project. It included the large screen TV. Underneath department 447 engineering, that budget amendment we will do at the end here. One thing just to back up about vacation and leave time. So on February 21st, the state of Michigan, the law goes into effect for Earned Sick Time Act. There's still legislation pending. Something has passed the House that's still sitting in the Senate. But if nothing else changes and that law goes into effect on February 21st, the township is will be burdened by the additional leave. So right now, the rate that we earn sick or personal time, you have to work 52 hours to earn an hour. That rate would change to 30 hours worked would equal an hour. So that's a significant, it's almost, so you earn about a week in a year. Now that rate would almost go to 2 weeks. And the caveat in the bill or the law states that the company doesn't have to pay that out when there's a separation, meaning a retirement or the employee leaves. They don't pay it out. So that is a help for the township. However, I can see a shrewd employee saying, well, I'm gonna take 10 personal health days or mental health days and save my vacation, right? So it is a burden right now. There is legislation, hopefully that will pass that we would be exempt from that, because right now we are a large employer as it states. So the people that wouldn't or aren't affected by this are boards, basically. If you were elected or appointed to a board, you don't qualify for this. But what does is our election workers, which is kind of a bookkeeping nightmare, meaning they don't work every year, but you have to, every 30 hours they work, they accrue an hour. So that's what would push us into the large category. So hopefully wherever it lands, I'm hoping right now it passed the House and it's in the Senate, and the limit would be 50 employees, then we would be fine. We'd be exempt and could keep what we have. But otherwise, we will have to change it going forward. So we'll change it in payroll, and then we'll have to have a human resources meeting to update the whole township policy book. But I didn't want to do that before we know where this lands. All right, back to the budget amendment. We had budgeted $10,000 for engineering. Right now we're sitting at almost $13,000, and this is due to the sidewalk project, both Grand River and Oak Grove, and also the engineering. We'd asked for standards for the performance guarantees. So between those, we need to do a budget amendment. We can do that right at the end. Under Department 701 Planning, I'm all for education. I think it's great that the planning commissioners and the ZBA members are doing that or stepping up and getting that education. One thing I would just maybe point out in the future, if we do that, make sure that we all have a deadline we sign up by, or all sign up the same way, because we had a planning commissioner sign up on their own and then we missed out on the group rate. And it just would be easier if we could just get everybody on the same application and send in one check. Going down farther, 702, the zoning mileage and expenses. Jonathan does a much better job than his predecessor, meaning that he does go out monthly, and so we will probably have a budget amendment there before the end of the year, but he keeps up with his list.
Excuse me, Brett, what do you mean he goes out monthly?
So he has a list that he goes and updates monthly, and I think it provided to you guys, right, as far as the, in the board. And then finally, to round out the general fund, we did make the annual transfer to the rec fund. So currently we sit at almost 54% of the budgeted expenditures, which is almost 5% below where we are with the fiscal calendar. So we have a surplus of $190,926 as of January 31st. Any questions, concerns about the general fund?
Brent?
Yep.
So first of all, thank you very much. Again, this is extremely thorough. The question I have for you is around Act 7 taxes, and that being the final payment, the general fund interest income that the started CD in August, is the intent to replicate that income year over year? That will just stay a CD?
For now, I mean, we'll keep revisiting it. Right now, Jonathan laddered them in, so that's not all gonna mature at the same time. But the bulk of it, or the longest one, is gonna mature in August, and we figure it's gonna be around $90,000 in interest. Not all for the general fund, but for Township.
Right, okay, and so, but then each year we would just do that again and again and again and again?
As long as there's not a need for the money.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And
Yeah,
anytime a CD comes due, we talk to each other to make sure there's nothing coming up,
Yeah, no, that
what's
makes,
going on, so
yeah,
we keep,
that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, oh, okay, how do we come up with, $40-some thousand again, right? Which, that's a great way to do it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving on to the road fund. Once again, this is collected on the winter bill, so we have the month of February to collect the remainder there. We have completed the Layton Road and Bowen Road road improvement projects. We'll have a little bit of dust control left in the spring still there, but it does look right now like we would have a surplus unless there's additional work that needs to be done on either of those. Do you remember, Jonathan? If there's
You talking about the projects themselves?
Yeah, Layton or Bowen. Okay, so we'd have about 69,000, which would go into the road fund balance and then can be spent next year. But just pointing that out because we had budgeted to spend everything we had taken in, so that's a good problem. All right, under Fund 208, the Park Rec Fund, we made that transfer in, and now underneath expenditures, we are done, obviously, paying for a membership that burden has moved to the taxpayers for the next 4 years at least. Just some things that I've thought about with this. It's a $500,000, and so for a lot of the large industrial and commercial, that's going to be a significant bite. Meaning, like the Tanger Outlet Mall is going to shell out almost $6,000 for the rec millage. In Enbridge, our largest taxpayer, is going to be $10,000 annually that they're going to. So I hope I'm wrong, dead wrong, but I kind of feel like there's going to be some tribunals come out of this, just with the increase, because this is not what they budgeted for, right? They don't have a vote for this. This is directly going to affect their bottom line. And maybe that's not a big number, and I'm all wrong, which I hope, but trying to be realistic.
Seems like quite the burden on the businesses.
It is.
Who don't have kids who go to school or
Don't
play
live
in the
here.
parks and.
Right. Yeah, right, they're not getting any value for those dollars. Fund 285, we are done with this, other than the report Jonathan and I have to do with the federal government at the end. But everything has been allocated and spent, and we have moved over from the sewer and water fund to the general fund, that amount that we had spent on the projects in the water and sewer. And I have that amount on the cash flow. Fund 592, the sewer and water fund, we did have a property sale, so now we're down to 2. We started to collect the interest income for special assessment, interest income on 7, 8, and 11. 8 will be done this year, so we'll be down to 2 for next year. They're slowly falling off. We've had some connection fee income, and then we had our user fees and for both sewer and water. So we're at 69.66%, which is about 11% above budgeted right now, and that's due in large portion to obviously the property sale and the connection fee income. So all in all, we're in good shape there. Under expenditures, everything is pretty much in order. I just wanted to point out, this spring we will have that clarifier project, which will be a large part of that sewer and water capital outlay expense. It's not gonna be quite 400,000, I think it's like 350. But that will be a large expenditure. Moving farther down, there's not a lot there, just the annual expenses. The one on the bottom, which I'm relieved that they were able to do this past fall, is the biosolids removal expense, because we were kind of pushing that deadline to the point that we were testing our limits, being able to hold on to that. Before I move on, the need a budget amendment for the engineering contracted services expense, and for right now, I thought that it would be appropriate to take that from 10,000 to 15,000 to account for the sidewalk engineering.
You think we're only gonna need another
I don't know.
$3,000 to $2,000?
At least that gets us into back in line. Well, Jonathan, do you think?
I mean, the only other thing that's really outstanding at this point is updating our standards for sewer and water. We've noticed some that need to be updated as projects come through.
That would be sewer and water though, so this is just general fund.
Okay, then yeah, I can't think of any.
Because the performance guarantee standards, that's all good.
It should be fine,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, if not, I can come back, Matt.
Okay. I'll make that motion.
Support.
Motion support, you wanna call out your motion, please?
Sure. Motion to make budget amendment to the engineering contracted services expenses from $10,000 to $15,000.
Support.
Okay, motion by Count, second by Fagan, sorry. I'll get it.
Thank you.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, moving on to page 7. So this was the breakdown of the legal fees we have. So these are the highlighted, there's 4 categories here. We have zoning ordinances, Oakland Tactical, Burkhart Road Associates, and the Howell Mason Litigation, or LLC. There's 2 numbers you'll see there. 2 different cases, but so this is from July 1st through current. This is what we've spent in this fiscal year for these. So if you look at that first one, August 15th, that is for all of the legal fees for July. So that it's the preceding month. $56,000, and the majority of that is attributed to the wellhead protection ordinance. This kind of, back in November, Jonathan remembers, I was pretty upset because this is something that we didn't budget for, right? This is way out of the scope, meaning, well, there's two things. Either we need to stop talking about rewriting the ordinance book and go do it, or we need to set a budget for these things and just tackle what we've allotted and then move on to the next year. I can't, in good conscience, keep an open checkbook. The cure can't be worse than the disease, meaning you can't have to spend more money on this than the lawsuit. So, that's just my 2 cents. I needed to get that off my chest. We need to come up with because this path right now, this is not sustainable. That's too much money.
I agree.
It's, just looking at the bills, it's like it's the law firms decided, well, we're done with Oakland Tactical, let's just start this. And Jonathan and I have talked about, and maybe it's as simple as getting a different attorney working on our stuff, because it does appear that the bills have escalated since the new attorney has started.
From what I understand, our attorney's rates are around maybe $300 an hour.
285 is, yeah,
which sounds like an average rate to me. Getting another attorney, I don't know if that's gonna save money or add to it, you know. It could break up some of the smaller task, I suppose. As zoning ordinances, is that specifically working on zoning verbiage in the ordinances themselves, or is it anything to do with zoning as far
that's
as?
your first part. That's typically that's what these bills relate to.
Okay.
Not any current cases, nothing. It's the research to get this.
And this is all Fahey and Schultz.
Yes. Yep.
No other.
No, that's really our only attorney we have.
Thank you.
Brent, how does this compare to other years?
Well, if you look back at the budget, we're almost already at 80% of what we budgeted, and through 60% of the year. So we had rough months with the Oakland Tactical when you had the special representative. I don't know what he was called, but his rate was steep.
Yeah.
Expert.
I mean, Oakland Tactical, we're what, 585,000 total for that?
Also, yeah, going all the way back to 2020.
So-
Here's my thought, and I'm not blaming anybody. It's just, it feels like maybe this is something we have control over. This isn't a lawsuit against us. It's something that we are doing. So we get through this part. What can we look back and learn from? Right? I'm just saying, if this is truly what it costs per ordinance, maybe we need to step back and say we need to rewrite. We need to do the book then. I mean, we've been talking about it for 10 years. I'm sounding the alarm because I just feel like maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's not. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But this just feels like
So really your concern is around the zoning ordinances, right?
costing so much to
Because all
get
the,
to a point.
yeah.
I mean,
all the others are lawsuits that have been brought against the township.
yeah, right.
Okay, so,
And it feels like we're kind of in control of this, right? This is our ordinance. So is there anything we can do differently? Whether it's, hey, can we have somebody else work on this stuff? When you look at the bills year over year, like the hours that one certain attorney is putting in just seem like a lot.
I think in the packet, the planning commission actually asked to have funding to redo the zoning ordinances, didn't they?
I think they asked for to get a number.
In that, I would be perfectly fine with. We've got a number to work towards, right? So this is how much work we've got for the year. I just get uneasy when it doesn't seem like there's an end in sight. I realize maybe it is tonight, you've got that on the agenda, but back in November, it's like, cause I was at the October meeting, and I seen how little he was spoken to, and then to get the bill, it was like, whoa.
So Brent, is there any way to get a breakdown of, like you said, the majority of it was the wellhead protection ordinance, but is there
Yeah,
any way
'cause
to get
they're-
a breakdown per ordinance on how much was spent? Cause I agree with you, some
I
of them are
can,
pretty
yeah.
high.
Yeah, I'll put that together.
I think the plan that we also have going is we wanna meet with Chris and talk to them and see, you know, justifying the hours for the output and see if there's a more economical way, you know, using a lesser or having the planner work with the attorney. If the planner puts it together and then they just approve it, I think we just need to
And
figure
the,
a better.
and the
better
attorney reviews it, right?
What's that?
And the attorney reviews it,
Yeah,
what the planner put
Yeah.
together, or a paralegal or something like that,
right.
as opposed to a $300 an hour attorney. Yeah.
So, we just gotta get to the root of, and find out what and why and how we're gonna fix it. So,
Well, I mean, I looked through those bills, and part of this is the Heritage Square, and they still owe us money for the attorney fees. So I just added it up, and they still owe us $27,000 towards the PUD agreement and attorney fees.
But is that going back before July 1st though?
No, I pulled these bills
These.
and was looking at, cause I've been in, correspondence with David from, MI Homes.
So maybe we get a breakout for these line items as far as whether they're related to the PUD or they're related to the wellhead. Because that would be beneficial, I think. Maybe it's covered already as you had specified.
Jonathan brought up the Heritage Square, this is the first one too where we've had significant, our attorneys are working on stuff with the PUD, which, like, we both agree on that the township should never pay for that. That's not, the developer's bringing that forward.
Yeah,
right?
why are our attorneys working on the PUD?
So they're working on the PUD agreement, which is required under our ordinance and is the condition that we preliminary approved the PUD from Heritage
Mhm.
with the condition that we come to an agreement. So our attorneys were working on that agreement in concert with their attorneys, but not only do we feel it's right, but our ordinance states these fees are supposed to be paid by the developer. And so
Okay.
we're in correspondence with them to recover those fees.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay, any other questions on that?
Is, Oakland Tactical, is that over with? Are we done, or is that still going on?
I'd love to say it is, Bob, but I've worked on or paid the bills for Rainbow Construction for 10 years, so I don't know if these are ever over.
I thought Oakland Tactical went all the way to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court denied their
Right.
request to hear the case.
They did.
So is it done?
I mean, that case is done. It doesn't prevent them from starting a fresh lawsuit on some other claim. Because that's essentially what happened with Rainbow was.
Right, it reopened.
They just kept, making new claims on
Going
different
up and
stuff.
down the ladder, appealing it, get kicked back.
Yep.
I will tell you that I've talked to other people that are interested in purchasing that property now, so that tells me more that it might be over.
Okay. Because the people that live around there, believe it or not, John Mills can tell you this, the people that are around there that oppose that, they actually use that land for their personal hunting purposes. You know, the people that don't want, Oakland Tactical in there. The guy lives right on the corner. He trespasses and hunts there.
So he wants to shoot there, he doesn't want anybody else to.
Right.
What do you mean?
He was just telling me he had, what, $30? Something like that.
All right, moving on to the cash flow. I've added a few things here. So the top, the sewer and water fund, we started the year with $2.1 million on July 1st. Currently, we're at 2.365 million. That's with transferring the 400 and change to the general fund for that, those funds that were used for ARPA projects. But the CD balance for the sewer and water fund right now is 300,000. So if you look at what is actually spendable, as of January 31st, it would be 2,065,000. So of that 2.3 million, 300,000 is in a CD. Moving down to the general fund, started the year with 4.4 million. We're currently at 3.7 million. We had the large transfer to the rec fund of 1.2 million. Of the 3.7, 2.6 million is in the CD. That's a comfortable amount. I'm not worried about not being able to pay the bills. And then in the township at large, so there's $411,652 that is available to spend, and we're hoping that it could benefit the township at large in some facet, whether that be sidewalks. It's kind of up to you guys to decide that.
Let's write some more ordinances, huh?
Oh, if that's what the board decides. Under road fund, started the year with 688,000. Right now we're at 641,000, and 100,000 of that is in the CD. Parks and Rec, we have 390,000 we started the year with. We're at 1.7 million, and of that, 1.2 million is in the CD. ARPA is over and done with. And then finally, real quick, general fund payback. If we were to do the payback right now, between the property sale, the special assessment that we've collected, and the year-end transfer, and remember that's water fees collected less the water expense, and taking 60% of that number and transferring it, we would make a transfer of $390,766. And just on the bottom there, those are the two properties we have left to sell. The large parcel on Mar, and then there's 22 acres on Thule. Questions, comments, concerns about any of this?
Thank you,
And if you
Brent.
think of something, you always email me, call, come in. Always happy to meet with you.
Congratulations on your audit.
Oh, thank you.
I think he spoke volumes about your work and the township in general, but I think you had a lot to do with it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Thank you. Got one more?
All right, yeah, one more. And this is more of an informational thing. This was brought to me. I almost told the guy no. It's a texting service, and what this is the ability for the township to push information out. And remember, a text is much different than a website or a newspaper ad, or it's direct. It's how people communicate now. And I'm going to play this short video for you because he does a much better job of explaining what this is versus me mumbling through this.
This is a quick little overview of the tank. Right, this is a quick little overview of the tank.
If I could just refresh this.
Right, this is a quick little overview of the Tanks My Gov system. We have been working with agencies all over the country. We're currently working with over 900 agencies now, from small towns with a few hundred people all the way up to big cities and even state offices of several million. So we make this system very adaptable to your needs. And this is a little bit of an overview of all the small communities that we work with around the country. So just a few hundred people, it still is great to have good communication and a way to communicate with residents in communities. So a lot of small communities we work with either have part-time staff or are only available a few days a week. And residents still need to be able to find information and services outside of normal business hours. So there are a lot of unanswered calls that happen, or when staff comes back to the office, there's a lot of voicemails or emails they have to respond to, creating a lot of communication gaps. And oftentimes there so that's where TextMyGov steps in to fill those communication gaps. There are a few main parts to our systems. We can push out alerts, of course, through texting to residents for different events. And then there is that two-way automation where residents can request information, even report issues. This little screenshot shows a trash can in the Detroit area, city of Royal Oak. We've been working for a few years. They have these signs on trash cans letting residents let the city know when they're full. They also have these on parking meters too. So if they're ever down, the city knows which ones they can go and service. And this, of course, is available to residents 24/7. This doesn't increase, communication with residents on that side. It doesn't make more people text in about certain things. It just replaces those phone calls and emails through an easier means of communication. So it doesn't require any more staff to manage this. It's very easy to set up. We even dedicate a project manager to the account where they set the whole thing up, they train staff, there's ongoing support at no additional cost. A lot of research behind texting shows that it is a much better means of communication opposed to emails, social media, even trying to find things on a website. Everyone has a cell phone these days, even older residents, showing that 94% of people over 65 own a cell phone. And that's not even a smartphone, just a normal phone that can receive text messages. And with a 98% text message open rate, you can see that it's just a much better way to communicate with people these days. And it's not new technology. It's been around since the early 1990s, and so everyone is very used to using that, getting those. Key features only offered by TextMyGov. We have a lot of ways that we can get people into the system with our marketing tools. We have a database of resident information we can import. You can send out a welcome text saying, hey, this is how we'll inform you of these important events, dates, things like that. And they can just easily reply stop to opt out at any time if they don't receive those. So they can opt into different groups, choose which information they want to receive. So with that database import, we can get much higher engagement rate from day one, typically 40 to 70% of the households in your area. That way they don't need to sign up. They can go onto a website, sign up through a widget. That's what it looks like right here. So a lot of the communities we work with has this on their website to let people know how to opt in. They can either text in keywords, that 91896 number to opt in, or they click the opt-in button with their phone number right there on the website. We are a sole sourcing product, meaning that no other company offers everything that we offer. Our marketing and technical support, compliance and reporting tools, and just our industry experience with 20 plus years working with our sister company, iWork, in public works management software. So here are a couple ways that you can interact with our demo system here. If you want to text in a pothole or water leak issue to this 435 telephone number, you can interact with the system and see how that works on your own personal cell phone. Or you can text in keywords to that same number and see how that works from a resident perspective. How our alert side works is residents can opt into groups. So we can create as many groups as you want. So whether it's weather groups, elections, city events, you can create those. Residents can opt into those easily. So you can either text out mass to everyone in the community. You can create internal staff groups to send out to those specific groups, or with our map alerting tool, you can send out geofence locations, so specific neighborhoods or parts of the city, you can send those out to. So that is a real quick overview of the system. We have proven engagement and high response rates. We have lots of communities in your area that we work with. So if you would like more references or how other communities working with, please get in contact with me and I can set up a time to show you kind of how this all works, go into a little bit more depth and answer questions. But I hope this is a good fit for you and we can work together soon. So
So this is more of informational. I don't know if this is something that the board would be interested in. Personally, last year, with the assessment notice snafu, this would have been a great tool. Obviously, text everybody that, hey, the assessment notice went out wrong, a new one is on its way, versus the hundreds and hundreds of phone calls we got here at the township. I'm not looking for an answer today, just, I guess, kind of yes or no, if this is something that's interesting, because I will go and find 2 more that are similar to this, so you guys have quotes to go through. The proposals, there's 2 parts. You can either just do push the information out, or you can have both, where resident can text in for information on things, and it will give responses. So, I don't know. I don't want to throw good money after bad if, I don't want to pay $4,000 for one text message a year that says, hey, cleanup day is on this day in May, right?
Well, I think, I've been advocating for a while to get some type of a system where the public can actually, let's say township has an idea, you can do an all email, text, or whatever, and get the public's opinion. I've always felt that, and we talked about that last year. Because I honestly, I think there's a lot of decisions are being made up at this little circle here based on, just like Oakland Tactical, a half a dozen people. You know what I mean? But what's the rest of the community want? There's not enough chairs in here to get an accurate, determination of what the people really want. So, I'm in favor of doing something, to where people can put in their input. Because I done quite a few polls, and a majority of the people that, answered the poll that I done on the gun range going in, it was like 80% of the people would rather see a gun range go in versus spend $600,000. So I think it's real important to get, public input and not run such, make the decisions on a half a dozen people that want to hunt the property.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Just to be clear, we have what's called public hearings at each of our planning commissions and... Sorry. We have public hearings at our planning commissions, and when those items come to the board, I think this is more around getting information out to the residents or allowing them to report issues like stray dogs and potholes and things like that, as opposed to what we're doing from a planning perspective. Is that accurate, Brent?
More of a push
Yeah.
push out.
Yeah, but to Bob's point, you could do polls like that if you would put it out and if people respond or not.
And it would only be this area.
I like, right, you can actually, yeah, specific neighborhood if you want.
Geofence?
Yeah, it's the group part.
Like if something was gonna happen over in Amber Oaks, just send the stuff to the people in Amber Oaks. Get people's emails or their phone numbers or whatever, and send emails, whatever, because I don't know very many people that just go to the township website to get all the information that they want and go there regularly, they don't.
So I found, especially with younger folks, text message is the way to communicate now. Email is almost becoming, that's too hard for them. So this really is a way to reach the masses.
Well, even in the hospital, they take groups of new nurses around to teach them how to talk to people because they don't know how to anymore. It's all text.
Right.
So I guess, is there interest in working towards something as far as similar to TextMyGov? If we're gonna spend the time and the effort to go get other quotes.
Yeah, if you there's not enough interest, I'll stop right now. Otherwise, I would promise something back by April. Your March meeting that date's pretty aggressive.
Yes, the other thing that we have talked about is even to budget it. If there's interest, we'd have the numbers to put into the budget for next year.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
that would be an additional. And then also further down the agenda, we have the social media thing, and we got the Facebook page ready to go. Videos are going to be on YouTube. So it's all gonna push from the website, so it's gonna be interesting to see how many more visits to the website we have and stuff like that, so.
So once we go to social media, once that gets rolling, it might take
We
the
wouldn't be
place
able to
of a
push
lot of
as,
this.
yeah, we wouldn't be able to push as well as this does. You know, like you said, Amber Oaks, I mean, if that is your target, there's a water main break over there.
Yeah, you got a boil water advisory or something, right?
And I didn't have a chance to talk to Greg and those guys to see how they handle it. I know most of the time they go on WHMI, but I don't know if they have anything like this that they're going directly to people to notify them. So I don't know if the county has anything like this.
So the county has a,
Twitter, they do.
I think
But-
so.
But
I think they use Twitter.
the county actually has an app to report potholes and road
Yeah,
problems.
the road commission
So yeah,
does.
that would be duplicative of their, what they're already doing, so.
I mean, something email, text, you know, there's a lot of old people that still don't use computers, believe it or not, you know? They will text, everybody has a phone number. But I mean, as many options as we could, you know, piece together, even with the YouTube thing, I mean, it's just better. I just feel it's better if we have more people putting their input in, no matter what means we need to use to get it to them.
I think
But I like the direct targeting with Brent's idea.
the only other concern that we came up with is if I get a text, and most of the time I'm gonna opt out right away. So what happens to our numbers as everybody opts out, you know? So that's a concern of, we have a huge list and then all of a sudden it becomes, you know.
And that's when we just, you know, make different decisions. But I
Right.
mean, I think it's worth trying.
These
But-
are 3-year contract, did I see that in one of them?
That's what it
It's a
said.
3-year
Yep.
term, so it'd be a pretty big bite to have everybody turn around and opt out of it. So when, Mr. Supervisor, when you say you would opt out of service, or opt out of it, it would opt you out of the service altogether, you would no longer receive text
I
from the.
Right,
most
and
of
then
them,
you,
yeah.
if you realize, oh, I missed that, I wish I would've known that, you can go to our website and get back on. You can
And he does
re-enroll
give us
yourself.
the data. Didn't you say there was the data behind it? If certain number of people are opting out?
I believe so,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, you can't prevent people from, you can't tell someone they can't opt out.
Oh, no,
No.
that's not the point.
But at least we know
Yeah.
if they're giving us the data.
Right.
I think it's a good idea.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes,
Two thoughts on it. I do believe it would be good to get some other estimates and, Brent, right, not
Brent.
Brent.
Yep, with an N, yep.
Brent is going to head that up to get more estimates, and his time, as I can tell, is already paid for, and I think it's well worth, the township's time to get more, quotes on this. My second thought was, the other thing I foresee is down to zoning enforcement. Now it's a easy access for everybody to make a complaint, however we take complaints may dictate that. But does it put a whole new burden on the township? And now we're, you know, double, triple our zoning enforcement that we once were. So, and does that make the township
And that-
better? Possibly, but just a concern or a thought.
I think we need something that's flexible enough. Perhaps maybe zoning or enforcement isn't something that we would want to utilize this for, at least to start. Brent, I'd also like to maybe see like a 1-year deal instead of a 3-year deal. I think given the fact that it's new, a 3-year deal's a little,
Aggressive.
yeah, maybe a 2, you know, they might come back and say a 2-year deal or something, but like going straight to a 3-year deal for something that's brand new, that we have no visibility to how well it'll work.
At the same time, this is gonna also take the burden off of the phone ringing all the time as well.
but somebody's gotta answer the text. If the texts are coming in, somebody's still gotta answer that text, so.
Well, there'll be canned answers and they'll go.
Right.
So if you're wondering when the cleanup day is, it's gonna give you the date and then it'll take you to our website if we have a list of what's gonna be taken. It's a pretty good way of getting a lot of information out fast. They would wanna link it back to our website.
As long as it's canned, right? As long as it's available.
Right, yes.
Right. The burden then becomes making the information available and or responding to the situations where information isn't available.
Right, yeah, we will have to grow with it, yes, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a lot easier to dedicate time to open up the computer and answer this stuff than to be in the middle of something, you really concentrate and have to answer this phone call and listen to somebody like me for an hour. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? It gives you a little bit more flexibility in your day, your schedule of your day.
I would also like to work with staff to understand what it is we'd use it for, because if it's just pushing cleanup day, it's not worth 4,000.
Right.
But if we have an idea of what it is that we'd be putting out there, I think that might make it easier to justify.
I'm not hearing any opposition, so.
Okay.
Go get some,
well,
go get some
well,
bids, I would say.
Yeah, and it might be, I roll it into the next year's budget,
Yeah.
so we have it, you know, we can make a decision, but have it roll out with the new budget year.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. All set?
Okay. Yep, thank you for
All
your
right.
time.
Thank you, Brent.
Thanks, Brent.
Thanks, Brent.
Wellhead protection ordinance.
So you do have the expensive ordinance in front of you. It's been to the planning commission, I think 3 times. I probably should have put something in here to alleviate the confusion. The last red line version of the draft wellhead are the changes that we got back after it had already gone to the county from the MHOG director, Greg Totera. So, you know, some of them are a little confusing just because things are crossed out, but in reality what you're looking at is, you know, just the text changes that are fairly minor, but I understand why it is that, you know, he put them in there.
Mr. Supervisor,
Yes.
could I have Mr. Bowl comment on the last planning commission and what was discussed
Sure.
related to this?
Concerning this?
Yes.
So this wasn't at our last meeting, this was being reviewed at the county.
You're gonna need your mic, Tim, please.
This was reviewed at the county, this wasn't discussed at the last meeting.
I
But
think it
there
was
was discussion at the planning commission on this, wasn't there?
December 17th was the last.
Back in December
the
when it
last
went.
meeting
Okay,
that was discussed.
So that's when the attorney was here.
okay.
We had plenty of call to the public comments. It was sent to the county. It was approved and sent to the county, who reviewed it. And I believe the county pretty much approved it also, right? They didn't have any major issues with it. So now it's come back to the township board, so.
I just remember, like, when I was still on the commission, there was a specific comment that we had circled and said we wanted clarity on that, and so we didn't. And that was a few months before December.
So it came back from the attorney several times.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get to, right?
Right,
That's a-
and I think the last time when we had the call to the public, we pretty much
I think
went through it with the attorney
Yeah, I
piece
think
by
the big
piece.
issue was regulated substances, because really the first draft, it was not really well defined. It was just kind of an open question.
You're correct.
Yep. Yeah, but we worked with the township engineer to kind of work through that and, you know, from an engineering perspective, look at what that would be versus an attorney who doesn't necessarily know what, you know, the rules around that would be. But that was captured in the version that was sent to the county and is in your packet.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions?
Mr. Supervisor, I have some thoughts.
Sure.
Skipping ahead to some emails from the community, it seems to be there's a lot of concern about the wording of it coming down to the governing body to make a decision, I believe I've seen, and it seems like I had read something about they even used that language in a recent court case they were going through. So, what I understand, the township board, as in us, would ultimately have the authority to grant, a gas station. Is that understood? Is that incorrect, or?
So we would have to do what we do with any kind of site plan approval process, which is like if it's a special use, you have to go through those findings and make sure that, you know, you're basing your decision on facts. So we'd have to do the same.
And there's enough in
The
here.
normal planning commission
There's
process.
still enough in the way that would prevent a board from approving.
I
a
believe
gas
so.
station.
I think he would be in violation of the ordinance as it's written
You
if you
would
did
be.
approve
Yeah.
it.
Understood.
I think we clarified that with the attorney.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other thoughts and questions? Are there any motions?
I would move to accept the wellhead protection ordinance, including the changes from the director of MHOG, Greg Tutera, as presented.
Support?
Motion by Hohenstein, second by Bull.
Yes.
Eventually I'll hear you two differently, but. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion.
Was it two? I'd rather see something in more black and white says you cannot.
Petroleum products is pretty much says you cannot, but that's
Well,
okay.
at the meeting with the engineer here, with Spicer was here, you know, basically, you know, he was saying in front of everybody that it comes down to me, you know. You remember that?
But you,
And I'm here to protect you when Phil was here.
you do rely on your experts, so you would find experts if something like this came along.
Well, that's what it seemed like, and that's what Kurt Hamilton was concerned about was, you know, there's nothing that definitely says no, you know? And, you know, when he said, well, I'm the determining one, when it comes to me, I'll say no. Well, what if Spicer ain't here? You know, so,
So under section 11, it says prohibited uses. It says these following uses are prohibited in the wellhead protection overlay district. Business and industrial uses that utilizes regulated substance, including metal plating, chemical manufacturing, wood preservation, and dry cleaning facilities. So one of the regulated substances is fuel.
does it say that though?
In the list of regulated substance, it's covered.
No. You guys voted for it, so I didn't.
Okay, we'll move on to sidewalk easement.
If you'll remember, the Annex Group, which is the apartments behind Kroger, as part of their site plan, had to install sidewalk along Oak Grove Road, but they only installed it in the section that is on their property. You know, we had discussed as a board of trying to complete that sidewalk, you know, essentially getting it from where the city ends, because we can't pave inside the city. So where the city ends to up to Henderson Road, essentially complete that block of sidewalk. One of the things we had to do, we approved several months ago, was for Spicer to go out there and survey the area, get the easements drawn up. So we did, we had a homeowner that was interested, so we did send out that easement information, including the survey, which is in the packet. So we sent that out to that homeowner. They did sign and return it, so the board does have to approve this. But it also provides us an opportunity. I know Mr. Mills is here tonight and he's made his views perfectly clear, but we have another homeowner on that block that we haven't reached out to. So we could take the opportunity, you know, after we approve this, to send the same information out to the other homeowner that has property on that block.
Okay. Questions? Motions?
So what is it you're asking for? Just us to approve this easement?
So tonight it's for this easement, which would also, so it'll allow us to install the sidewalk across their property. Instead of, in lieu of payment, one of the options that we discussed as a board and was the one that they wanted was that we will also at the same time pave their entrance between the sidewalk and the road. So their little taper at the end of their driveway. It's a nice thing for them to get as a bonus as opposed to a relatively small payment for the use of the property, but it also preserves, you know, the edge of our sidewalk from them driving over it. So,
Mr. Supervisor,
Yes.
Mr. Hohenstein here mentioned that Mr. Mills had some concerns and he's voiced them. I would like to hear those concerns if the board would entertain it. From Mr. Mills specifically.
Okay, you want to share your concerns of having a sidewalk across your property?
Yes. First of all,
If you go to the microphone, they'll be able to hear you on camera too, so.
Thanks, John.
John Mills, 1750 Oak Grove Road. First of all, I got a letter in the mail from Spicer Engineering that said we represent Howell Township, which immediately made me recoil. And it said that Howell Township was wishing me to grant them a permanent easement for this sidewalk. Okay, so I then contacted a couple of longtime Livingston County realtors that I've known for years and years, and I asked them what's going to happen to the value of my property, 1795 is the house there, if we put a sidewalk in there for these low-income Joe Biden housing people to walk up and down. He said, well, your property will be devalued by $10,000 to $15,000. Okay. Secondly, some commercial entities that I'm having discussions with indicated that they wanted nothing to do with dealing with local government and permanent easements, that's just proved to them to be difficult. So those were my major concerns. When Spicer Engineering, I called the Spicer Engineering gentleman. His letter said, you know, get a hold of me if you've got concerns, and I did that. And again, to me, if there's going to be a sidewalk to service that 220 unit housing establishment to get it over to shopping, they need to go a little bit west of my property where the city of Howell and at the time Howell Township property share a property line, and shoot a sidewalk from, I don't know how many of you have been back in there, there's a kind of a community center in there, kind of a central building, and shoot that sidewalk from that central point south right over to the Kroger complex. That's what makes sense. If I'm living way back on the west side of that housing development, am I going to walk clear to Oak Grove Road to then go 300 yards down to Kroger? Not a chance, not a chance. So it just made more sense to me. Now I don't think that proposal that I made to the Spicer guy ever probably came to this board, but at any rate, that to me still makes more sense to shoot right across City of Howell property. That way you don't have to deal with jackasses like me either, so.
Okay, thank you. Answer your question?
Thank you, John. I did that.
All right. So, is there a motion to accept the easement?
Motion to accept public sidewalk easement for 1907 Oak Grove Road as presented.
support.
Motion by Counts, second by Hohenstein. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries.
Excuse me, can I make another brief comment on that subject?
Call it the public's coming. No, go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead, John.
Go ahead.
If these people who are using that sidewalk get to my property and there's no sidewalk there, so they walk down the edge of the road in road property, and some drunk comes along and pops them, who's gonna be liable? I think you are. So that's something for you to think about too. That's another reason to get that sidewalk away from Oak Grove Road, a very busy road. Get it back in the center of the property so it services those people better. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to draft lawn and landscape snow contracts.
So these are draft contracts, as we were talking in the office, kind of seen as three distinct things, not that one person or company couldn't bid on all of them or, do two of them, but we saw it as three distinct things. But we wanted to make sure we had the contract first and put the contract out there as part of our closed bid acceptance. So these are before you to make any adjustments or any changes that you want before we actually put them out to receive closed sealed bids.
Okay. Comments, questions, concerns?
So Jonathan, why, what would be the difference between the landscaping and the lawn care? I know you said that this doesn't mean that one contractor won't get both.
Right.
But is there any way to combine those?
So the issue we've had in the past is that the people who cut our lawn don't do a good job or really weed our flower beds at all. They really need some attention. We had she's sort of local, she doesn't live in our township, that really wanted to fix up our beds, and she worked really hard to get them looking nice, but we really haven't done anything to them since. So she replaced all the plants and got things looking nice, but we haven't done much, and the people who have done our contracts haven't done much to keep it up, so.
Okay.
So the way I read it is that the landscaping is around the township hall, whereas the lawn care is the township hall plus the walking path, plus the cemeteries, plus the wastewater treatment plant.
There's companies out there that specialize just in gardens. And I think because of the financial situation we were in for so long, we got behind, they don't look good. I don't wanna put $1 million
I agree they need to be
into it,
done. I'm just
but
wondering
it
if there
needs
was.
some good maintenance. So now if a landscape company comes forward and they got proof that they specialize in this and that they can do a good job, but I think we really need to put some effort into get it back to looking she was with the garden club, was the lady that was here before.
Okay.
And she was a master gardener, and she was bringing in other people working on their master gardener, and we had great looking stuff. So didn't cost us anything, it was wonderful. But we haven't put mulch down, we haven't done anything. A lot of it is just getting weed killed.
I agree, it
the
needs to be
method that they're
done.
weeding,
I was just wondering
so.
if there was a way to combine it all into one contract with one.
That was the
with-
reason
with
with
one
the separate
company.
contract, though. That was on me. That
Okay.
was my request.
Also on the snow removal, is it 2 inches or 2 inches? 2 inches or more? Does it read that there's salting or plowing?
I mean, so the way that the attorney drafted it was, it looks like 2 and up.
So 2 inches should be salted, shouldn't it? At least? Is there something special for salting?
I mean, so further back, they talk about the salting, if memory serves.
Yeah,
It's been a while since I
Section
read
A, item B, right? Item 1AB, area to be sanded or salted when 2 inches or more of snowfall accumulates.
Right, but it's 2 inches or more, so doesn't it get pretty slippery with an inch?
So what you're saying is you want something for under 2 inches as well?
I think we should cover it as, at least for maybe a salting. It may not need to be plowed, but,
They're plowing under 2 inches right now and salting, right?
It's hard to tell. They don't come real fast, and so they're.
we got now.
The last snowfall we had, it was the last ZBA meeting, right? And I came in here and said, who plowed the parking lot? And you said, well, right? Because I was trouncing through snow and in the parking lot and the sidewalk getting here. So I actually think we can adjust the inches and talk about inches and sanding and snow and all that sort of stuff. But I think having the contracts and having it specified like this is very good. So I appreciate the effort.
So is the idea to snow remove under 2, Tim? I mean, because to me, it's adding an item here on the terms of payment and cost. You're just adding another line item for under 2.
I would say for any walking areas, if you have 2 inches of snow, you're gonna need some type of either salting or shoveling. Maybe not the parking lots to the cemetery or anything like that, but especially where you have
But for the
customers
township
walking in.
hall in particular.
Well, the cemeteries you guys are doing on all, as you call them right now, right? As they're gonna be a service or whatever you call if it's needed?
It's call as needed, and they also open it up around the holidays, so that if people are home for the holidays, that they're open.
But I think the township hall where people would be walking on a regular basis and a daily basis should be a lot more often as far as snow and salt. I mean, I couldn't imagine coming in and salting over 2 inches of snow. That would be kinda dumb. Maybe you should change the procedure for just the township hall where the public's gonna be.
So,
One slip and fall and there goes Brent's budget.
So you're saying like a half inch to 4, quarter inch to 4?
What do you guys feel safe? You guys-
Dusting to, because a lot of times they're just gonna come in and backpack blow it and throw some salt on it if it's light,
Sure.
so.
I mean,
Or if there's freezing rain, I mean, how is that covered?
it's not.
I would say some salting at least for,
Or leave it at 2 and then, if you need more, give them an option on there to, if we call because of icy or whatever.
Yeah, usually the per inch thing, I mean, as most of you guys realize, it just takes you longer and it's harder on your equipment, and you sometimes have to bring in specialized equipment because you don't have any place to push anymore. So that's usually where the inch increments, the price goes up, because it's gonna take them longer, but.
Well, the government standard is 2 inches, so.
What do you mean, the government standards 2 inches?
Oh, like when I was working on HUD homes and stuff like that, if it was over 2 inches, you had to do it.
Okay.
But then that was always trumped out by city ordinances, because city ordinances, like in Lansing, it is 0. You got snow, if you haven't shoveled the walk, you're getting a $300 ticket. Which also is something that, over there in Oak Grove, they're gonna have to worry about who's gonna ticket if that doesn't get maintained. Cause now you're gonna own that sidewalk. Is that something that needs to be added, or is the homeowner's gonna do it, or?
Maintenance is required by the owner.
Ooh. Just like Lansing.
So, I think easy enough just to call out the township hall and
That's
clear at
totally
all
fine.
times.
That's what I would do.
Okay. That's easiest. Anything else? Obviously, the idea is to have these all come in and be very similar, so we don't have to compare one thing to another, to another, to another. So,
Did you guys enjoy getting photos of the work being done last year? As things were being mowed, I can
yes,
tell.
it works out nice.
Because I can tell you that Mr. Black back here done a wonderful job at the cemeteries, and the neighbors of the cemeteries, when I went out there, complimented his work.
Does a nice job. Okay, nothing else you want added to these? You good with what we got?
Yeah, we'll make the change and we'll get them out for bid.
Okay. All right, Township Planner Contract Review Renewal. Want this one, or?
Well, I mean,
Pretty self-explanatory.
It is. Our contract was up with the planner, the township planner. This is the new contract, if you're inclined to renew. Like everything, rates have gone up. And they even provided a schedule for where the rates will go over the next 3 years.
so Mr. Chair, I had some questions.
Sure.
So I know Carlisle and Wortman's been our planner for quite a few years.
Yep.
When their contract comes up, do we get any type of competitive bids from any other companies that do it?
We have not.
Okay. I understand the continuity of keeping the same people. That has its value, but it would be nice to be able to at least have an idea what others would offer or charge. Me personally, I'm happy with their services, but I still think to do due diligence, maybe we should take a look. And I also had a question on their rates on the last page. The 24-25 rates from associate and planner on down. The next year they jump, well, one's $30, the other one's $40. Do we know why that might be?
I mean, the comment that was made to me was that our contract had numbers in it that were fairly old, in that across the board, not even just at their office, but in the industry, they've gone up, and ours was just at a much older rate. So as opposed to jumping us right to the rate that they would prefer us to be, they decided to kind of ease into it.
So they're actually charging, in 25, 26, they're gonna charge more for an associate planner than a principal planner?
I was baffled by the same thing, but a lot of the times principals will make money on profit of the company versus their hourly rate.
Okay. I did see they include some training in there, which is-
Support staff as well almost doubled. Perhaps they can explain that.
Ends up being the highest paid out of all of them.
And this is a 3-year contract?
I believe that's what it said, yes.
Yeah.
You think they'd lower their price if you told them they were gonna get a couple more bids?
Again, the comment I was given was that our numbers were so low because they've been essentially locked in for a very long period of time, and that, again, that was the easing into it. All their other people that they're doing are at those higher numbers already, and we were one of the last ones. And again, this was his comment, so I haven't verified it.
This was Ben's comment?
This was Paul's comment.
Paul's comment.
Paul's comment. You know, is that industry-wide, this is still a competitive number. So if we got other bids, you would see if that's true or not. Again, I don't have a way to verify that sitting here.
Do we have the bids?
Please. One more question, probably for Jonathan. This AutoCAD operation on miscellaneous fees and expenses, what's that amount to? What does that mean, AutoCAD operation?
You know, my guess is that it's for updating our map. So one of the things we have to do when we update, if someone does a rezoning or something happens, our zoning map, which we have on our website, has to be changed and updated. So my guess is that's paying for that person's time.
Okay. Seems pretty reasonable, $30 an hour for an engineer, but that was all. I was just curious what it was. Thank you.
Okay. So I heard bid from 2?
I don't have a problem with going to get other bids, based on seeing the quote that they provided us.
Okay.
I would like to see more bids too, as well. I think that's a good idea, Tim.
All right.
That's fine. Yeah.
You fine with that?
Yeah.
So you're good? Bob, you good with that?
I'd say get another bid, just
Okay.
see where we stand. I mean,
Any recommendations?
I don't know of anybody.
Giffords is one, if you go to the Michigan MTA, you'll see a whole list of
Yeah.
planners that are available.
And I think Giffel is Osceola, maybe Genoa, so we can reach out to them also to see.
Giffords also has a thing called clear zoning.
What their rate cards are. You get rate cards from them.
I'm sorry?
We get rate cards from them. From Osceola and Genoa, right?
I don't know. Okay. So, we'll go for bids?
Sure.
Everybody good with that? Township social media policy.
I mean, this was kind of sparked from Bob's comments previously, but also getting all of the camera, the microphones, the TV. You know, the intent is to, when we record these, put them on YouTube. You know, Bob brought up previously that people are on social media, they're not necessarily going to our website. So we drafted a social media policy try to tackle that, you know, try to keep it as simple as we can without overburdening the policy, but also provide some guardrails for those that are doing it, so.
I think it's a good idea, and I have to say that the sound system in here, the microphones, the TV, came to a meeting here a couple weeks ago, and I think this is the most professional that I've seen this room. I think this is wonderful.
Just should have mentioned it earlier, you gotta stay very, very close to these, cause on the recording, they don't pick up. If you're more than an inch or two away from that thing, it won't pick it up.
Even with my deep voice?
Even with your deep voice. So just a heads up, when we start showing the videos, you'll start to see it, so.
Okay.
just informational.
I just don't want to overpower anything.
Hey, but John can hear you. Questions, concerns, thoughts?
Mr. Supervisor?
Yep.
Yeah, I have a concern, and it's the administration of it. As I read, the committee will be made up of, the clerk, the treasurer, and the supervisor, is that right?
Yep.
I would recommend we change that to the HR committee, and that way if we have a change in HR committee or these three positions, it's always to the HR committee.
That is the HR committee.
I know it is, but it may not always be. Is that right? The HR committee is not just it's 3 board members that could change in the future. It wouldn't necessarily be treasurer,
Any idea
supervisor.
how the HR committee is worded? Is it worded as supervisor and
I don't, offhand, I
clerk
don't
and
know.
treasurer? Obviously, he
Our-
researched it, so.
Our policies and procedures would state that the HR committee, Human Resource Committee will be composed of 3 appointed members of the Township Board. And
Okay.
I believe we appointed those members recently, right? In the first meeting, or not first meeting with the new members. Did we approve continuation of the Human Resource Committee?
You would have, because it's on the list of our additional duties, and so those are listed under the supervisor, the clerk, and the treasurer.
So I thought, thank you. I guess my only other concern is the township essentially has control of a media outlet, and we're putting 3 elected members in control of that media outlet. With everything we see going on a national platform right now, I just wonder if it's the right move for elected members of a governing body to have control of a media outlet. I do understand that we need to be transparent and make as many efforts as we can to involve the community in what's going on here. But I'm also curious if maybe this is better left to be controlled by employees of the township rather than elected members. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Concerns?
Mr. Chair, I just have one.
Sure.
On number 2, it says administrative access to township social media accounts will be limited to the committee and the administrator.
Correct.
My question is who's the administrator?
I mean, as of right now, the intent would be that Teresa Murish be the administrator.
Okay.
Again, that's not set in stone, and she's agreed to do it, and she has experience with this stuff.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
And I think we just leave that as an open, as things change. Teresa goes or decides she
I just
doesn't want to do it, or we get
Curious on
somebody
how that was appointed
Yep.
or decided or?
willing and able.
Okay.
Any other thoughts, concerns?
Motion to approve the Howell Township social media policy is presented.
support.
Motion by Counts, second by Hohenstein. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Road chloride bid.
So Mike did receive the 1 chloride bid. Past couple of years, we've only gotten the 1 from Chloride Solutions. There was another company for a while that would also submit but this is the one that we've used for quite a few years now. The intent is still, like last year, where the county will pay for the first application. And last year, I believe we did 2. I mean, we still do stuff where there are roads that get touched up more than others. They just, for some reason, are dustier than the rest of our roads. I think we budgeted for 3 applications. I think in the end, we may have done like 2.5.
I think the county did 1, and then we did 1.
We did 1, not 2.
At least on my road.
Okay,
I think that's right.
that's right.
I think so. I
Okay.
remember 1 happening. I don't remember 3 happening.
All right.
Any motions, thoughts?
Motion to approve chloride solution dust control quote as presented.
Support.
Motion by Counts, second by Bowl. Discussion?
Do you have a preference as to how many you would like to budget for, just so that we have some idea when it comes to budget time, if the township's willing to pay for 2 or?
I think let's do exactly what we did last year, where it's a total of 3 with the township willing to pay for up to 2. But on an as-needed basis, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I don't, the only thing worse than dust on the roads is the complaints from residents because the roads are too sloppy because the chloride got put down, so.
Our rust on our cars.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Spring and fall cleanup approvals.
So Teresa did put all this together in terms of the costs. I believe these were, most of these are, I was thinking she had done actual costs for
Yeah, there's a
24.
spreadsheet
Is that
on
what
there.
this is? 2024 cost. So it's estimating the actual costs and also setting I believe we've already approved the date for the May cleanup day. It's really the fall cleanup day for the date that she was looking to get set, if you're still interested in doing another fall cleanup day. There were a couple things that she wanted some clarification on. In the past, the township has paid for the first 5 tires that someone brings in. Above that, the person bringing them in actually pays a fee according to their schedule from the company. Is the township still interested in doing that? Do you want to just pay for all the tires? And then I think it was the shredding company. People really enjoyed having the shredding company last fall that was up here. The question is, do you want to do that again? And if so, you need to pick one because the company we used last year is not available already. And so I guess also kind of as a note for moving forward, if we're interested in continuing to do this, we need to be a little more proactive on approvals, just so that staff, whether it's Teresa or whoever, can go out and get vendors scheduled for that day, because there tends to be a lot of cleanup days, and those vendors kind of get taken quickly on those weekends.
So, Jonathan, I thought the fall cleanup day was like more specific towards like paper shredding and like electronics and stuff. We're basically kind of expanding the fall cleanup day to be just like the spring cleanup day.
That was for the people that came to the fall cleanup day, they were really bummed that we didn't have essentially spring cleanup day 2.0. So
Really?
yeah, I don't know how much use it will be. Again, people ask for it, but will the numbers kind of bear out? I don't know.
I think for the low cost and having a way to get rid of this stuff, it keeps it out of people's yards and
And out of the street, out of the
I would
roads.
agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
Was it well attended last year? I didn't make it.
I missed it. I had another commitment.
The fall one, you mean?
The fall one.
Yeah.
Does it require township volunteers? I seem to remember some board members. Did you guys volunteer on cleanup day last year?
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to do anything as far as personal liability and indemnifying our homeowners' policies or anything
Right.
like that? Or
It's a township event, so there's an umbrella policy over
there's a
the event.
couple layers there.
Yep.
But that's only for employees, people that are being paid by the township.
No.
Even the city of Howell has, hold harmless agreements that they make people sign when they're coming in to do volunteer work. Because remember, I was gonna volunteer to mow the grass out here for free, but you guys wanted to hold harmless, and you got the attorneys involved and spent thousands of dollars and, you know, trying to basically give me a gag order to cut the grass.
Are we not paid by the township as far as
Yeah, we're
board
not
members?
considered
Yes, you
employees.
are covered, just like I was covered if I was to mow this grass. But you guys still,
So can we talk about the issue at hand, which is the township cleanup day?
this is cleanup day.
Yeah,
So-
but we're not talking about mowing the grass. We're talking about cleanup day.
Right. I mean, Bob's situation was different than cleanup day, and the insurance policy does cover the volunteers that work for cleanup day.
But our insurance covered me, and they said that. But you guys wanted more.
Well,
I still have that email from your insurance companies that said, yes, I am covered.
you still have the email from the attorney regarding the policy that we were talking about, and you spraying chemicals on township grounds and you possibly mowing, which is a different thing
You're
than-
bringing your own equipment in.
Right.
These people are bringing their own gloves, their own bodies.
Can we, I'm just wondering, is the issue at hand, what, Jonathan, what are you looking for from us from the perspective of the cleanup day?
So I mean, the issues are, do you still want a fall cleanup day? If so, are you okay with the date? For spring cleanup day, the tires, do you want to continue with the system we've had in the past? Do you want to just pay for all the tires? Do you want to pay for no tires? And then the last one was, if you do a fall cleanup day, do you want to include shredding? If you want to include shredding, you got to pick a company, because there's 2 companies available, which is not the one that we used last fall.
I don't mind you guys picking a company, right? From that, at least from my perspective, I don't care, right?
Agreed.
It,
Fine.
it's, the difference in price is $100, and we're talking about paper shredding, right? I mean,
Yep.
So, to me, I don't know that that's really a big deal, right? So yeah, I think a fall cleanup day would be a good idea. It sounds like to expand it. It sounds like the residents want it. Motion to approve fall cleanup day on Saturday, September 13th is presented.
Support.
Motion by Count, second by Bowl. Discussion?
Mr. Supervisor,
Yes.
as much as I understand the good that this could do for the township, aesthetics, cleaning up people's yards, getting rid of waste, garbage, so on, this seems to be a charitable thing for the township to do, and as I understand, we're not here to do charitable things. We're not here to do good. We're here to pay bills and provide a service. So that's my thought on it. I do understand the benefit of it, but you know, a lot of these things that people are bringing to get rid of, I mean, really you should rely on the property owners, the people who have the waste, but I'm sure it's a consensus of this board to help people get rid of their waste. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Still didn't get a question answered on the tires. My feeling is we can't make it unlimited and we pay for them all, or we'll have semis rolling in with tires.
Yeah, I would agree.
So,
I think
I think.
what we've done is fine.
Okay.
First 5.
All right.
Okay, everybody in consensus on that?
Yes.
All right. Move on to call to the public. Mr. Mills.
John Mills, 1750 Oak Grove Road. In new business, the financial auditor, young man, Gabbridge, left me with the impression that there's about $6 million in a general fund, and I think his letter said that that can be used at your discretion. Is that kind of accurate? Okay. Within the past 10 days, I wrote 3 checks totaling about $15,000, one to Howell Township, one to Osceola Township, and one to Cohocton Township. I've lived at 1750 Oak Grove Road for 55 years, and for 55 years my property taxes have gone up. Wouldn't it be, is it within your power even to put a hold on property, a 1-year hold? Now I know you get numbers from the state and that allows you to raise property taxes, but you know, another quick point. When I get my property tax notices from Cohocton Township, there's a rather nice and newsy newsletter included in that. If you could hold everybody's property taxes for a year and put that in a newsletter, you'd be rock stars. You'd be rock stars here. But you're shaking your head, no, it just can't be done. Can't be done.
You would have had to ask Brent. I would call Brent to verify, but my understanding is that comes down from the county and we are just the ones to pass it on.
Yep.
So.
Okay, number 2, since the last meeting, I had a lawsuit pending against Union of Oak Grove, which is this 220 unit development just north of me. They hired a contractor to put in a sidewalk from 1907, Craig Douglas's property, down to the edge of my property. Union at Oak Grove personnel directed this contractor, and they took out a tree on my property, a fairly large, nice black locust tree. They didn't know, I challenged the contractor when he was there taking my tree down, and they told me essentially I probably ought to get out of the way. But they didn't know where the property line was. Subsequent to the tree removal, I hired a surveyor to come in and establish the line. Then I hired a tree appraisal guy out of Ann Arbor to establish the value on the tree. And with that data, then we filed suit against Union Oak Grove. Union and Oak Grove's financial team kicked the can down the road for about 1.5 years. And we had Zoom meetings, and we did this and we did that. And all the while, of course, my attorney is turning the crank on the cash register. But in fact, my attorney told me at one point that their strategy was to outlast me. That I would probably, after about so many meetings and so much fees and so on, would cave in and give up. And my attorney assured them that I had unlimited resources and that I wasn't going to give up. At which point, we had a meeting out at the property that involved Judge Daniel Bain. Got to know him, fine fella. In fact, I just happened to have my backhoe there. Union at Oak Grove had made their best attempt at covering up any evidence of the tree. They had ground the stump out, put topsoil over it, and they denied there was never a tree there. Well, I had photographs showing the tree. Anyway, Judge Bain said, yeah, go ahead, show me that stump. About 2 or 3 swipes with the backhoe and there's the stump. Well, he said, I've seen enough. He ruled in my favor, and ultimately Union at Oak Grove wrote me a check. The reason that I blab on about this at all is I appreciate Brent's, in his presentation, he had, I don't know, $56,000 that you've accrued. Maybe that was in the past year. Then I think I heard Mr. Wilson say something about $500,000 total expense that the townships incurred on this range.
Oakland Tactical.
Yeah,
It was
Oakland Tactical.
585,000.
It is a tough call for you, I'm sure, to decide how far to pursue a fight. And in the case of my tree, there was a principle involved. When I make a mistake, I have to pay for it. Well, they made a mistake. There was nothing. They weren't out to try to hurt me or anything. They made a mistake. They made a mistake. They didn't know where the property line was. They marked a tree that wasn't theirs. But the stuff we went through, they were denying that there was ever a tree there. It was ridiculous. Okay. So, yeah, I appreciated Brent's rendition there where he showed thousands and thousands of dollars in litigation fees that we're all incurring. My next little bullet here is Mr. Wilson alluded to, quote, quote, old people who don't use a computer.
Yep.
That would be me. So I guess that makes me kind of a second-class guy or something.
No,
Not as smart as everybody
No.
else or something. 'Cause
it makes you better.
Okay, and then lastly, now that I've bored you nearly to death, since the last meeting, my wife and I have been joined by our 10th great-grandchild.
Congratulations.
And our family tree is now 30.
Wow.
And fortunately, all of them live within 10 miles, so we get to see them all. My wife, about 3 or 4 months ago, had a stroke, and she's recovering, and the medical people say she'll make a full recovery, but has it ever been great to have all those kids and grandkids close? Because the food comes, and the help comes. We're happy to have a big family tree. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Anyone else for calls to the public? Yes, sir.
How does one go about volunteering for the spring and fall cleanup?
We have a sign-up sheet on the desk in the,
Okay, thank you.
is it out yet?
If it's not, it should be soon.
Yeah.
I think it was there.
Was it?
Anyone else? Seeing none, go on to reports. I have nothing out of the ordinary for supervisor. Treasurer?
You have my investment report, you have the report from G2G, the credit card company that we currently use, and we're busy processing tax payments.
Okay, any questions of the treasurer? Clerk?
We were called out from the state. We got an audit on our election, the early voting, which we do with Cohocton and Howell City. And I have to say kudos to Tanya, Tracy, and Susie for the great work they did. We passed with no problems.
Any questions of the clerk? Zoning, you got a report. Assessing, you have a report. Fire authority. Been working on the expansion of the Osceola building. We had a couple of meetings with that to look at the layout. See where it's it hasn't been back to the board yet to get approval for engineering or anything like that. They invested in LexPool Solution Systems, which is an HR system. So they're gonna go through, redo their entire manual. It does all of the wonderful corporate training that we all know and love. And so with LexPool, they look at any of the National Fire Academy or National Fire Protection Agencies, things that change throughout the year, so they can change their policies immediately and stay on top of it. They were trying to do it themselves, and it just was always falling behind. So this will protect us more than anything, just because of the additional training aspect of it. We did get a return from the MMRA in a refund of $30,000, which is our insurance. Michigan Municipal Risk Association. So our insurance goes into a pool, and if there's no claims within that pool, then all of the money gets doled back out. And if there's big claims, the smaller you get back. So I think the chief said we paid like, I hate to say this, but I think it was like $35,000 was our bill, and we got 30 back. So don't quote me on those numbers, but it was the 30,000 I know is correct, but I don't remember what we actually paid. So any questions of Fire Authority? MHOG?
Main discussions from the January MHOG meeting were around the cross-country mains. Permits are coming in from Eagle, Drain Commission, et cetera, et cetera. Pre-construction meetings are happening. Hopefully, we can start actually digging and construction in the March, April timeframe. Although it'll be kind of wet, but hopefully we can start then. Development, the Soapy Bucket Car Wash at Oak Grove and M59, that's in the permitting phase. Pre-con meetings are also happening for that. We had a water reliability study that was completed by Tetra Tech. All looks good there. And then we also signed an engagement letter for FY 2024 for our auditor. So,
Okay, any
on that,
questions,
business
M.
as usual.
Planning Commission? Minutes are in there, but if they're,
So there's also a 2024 annual report that was mostly put together by Jonathan, but there were several concerns that we had at our last meeting that we're passing on to the board. We're gonna be reviewing the township solar ordinance, taking into consideration PA 233 and all the legal challenges currently going on with that. But our main request was for the complete review and update of the township zoning ordinance, which we've discussed. And obviously to continue the training. For the meeting itself, we had one scheduled public hearing for rezoning some property on Hydraulic Drive. And that was from industrial to industrial flex. That was approved and should have went to the county for, does that go to the county to be reviewed, Jonathan?
It's the rezoning?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So we haven't seen that yet. And we also had a discussion concerning the ADU ordinance that was sent down, that we have been discussing since the spring. And as much as we tried, we couldn't not come to terms with them becoming rentals at some time in the future if we allowed detached structures in the backyard. We tried to find workarounds, but even with the workarounds, then we would have an enforcement issue. And judging by how our enforcement's going now, we didn't need to create any additional. And we also were concerned that it would lead to further neighbor problems. So a motion was made to recommend denial of the ADU language to the board. And I believe that has to go to the county, or I think we have to have another public hearing, I believe.
So yeah, the public notice didn't happen, so we have to have another public hearing on it, and then it will go to county.
So that was the ADU, but for all the work that we put into it, and with all the discussions that we had, we did see a need, if the resident needs to make a quarters for an aging relative or family member of a different sort, that we should try to streamline that process with our existing ordinance, if that's at all possible. And we had a lot of discussions about what was preventing that from happening, and I think some of it's unclear. So with the board's permission, I'd like to go back to the Planning Commission and try to modify our existing ordinance if at all possible, or have some discussions concerning it, to streamline maybe a special use or a special circumstance within our existing ordinance. Or maybe it would be as simple as a policy change after some discussion.
okay, any opposition to that?
Mr. Supervisor, I do. You know, I've watched this thing develop, I think, just about from the beginning. And I've been to the public hearing. There was a lot of concern and a lot of voice from the public on being able to do this detached. And it later on moved to, we're gonna X out it being a rental. It can't be a rental, and that's fine. I could support that. But now here we are, the public is out of it, and we've completely changed from what was thrown out that day of the public hearing and right back to their attached units. And I'm very glad we gotta go back to a public hearing so the public can hear this again, but we completely have ignored what the public wanted, and we seem to be following the direction of Mr. Bull on what he wants for his neighbors. And now, no offense, Sharon, but Sharon's been an advocate that's pretty well mirrored Mr. Bull's concerns, so now he's got an easy second. And even our chair of that meeting, you know, he didn't even make it to the public hearing to hear the public's concerns, but now he has concerns of it being attached. So I would recommend the board approve the ADU ordinance, as all the work that has been put into it. I think it's as good as it gets. And if we really wanna solve an issue here as far as a housing shortage, or to be able to house a relative or a family member, then let's quit getting in people's way. I mean, we all have outbuildings. Tim, you've got multiple outbuildings. I do. Bob, you do. Probably everybody on this board does. I don't care if somebody walks in and out of it. It's not my business. So whether that's attached to their house or detached, I think it makes no difference. That is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think people ought to be able to build, like Matt here said, he wouldn't mind having a guest house, you know? There's lots of guest houses.
So we discussed this in length, and if you have property that is suitable for a guest house, you should be able to split it and build a guest house. So, I mean, there are options out there for people to do. We were sympathetic with people needing to house an older relative or something of that nature. The fact of it being an affordable housing option, or to make affordable housing is basically a fallacy if you look at it. We're basically going to be allowing rentals in our backyards eventually. If someone invests that much to put a tiny home in their backyard and that family moves out in 10 years, what becomes of that investment in the backyard?
What is that much?
It's gonna be more than, because it's gonna have to conform to county specifications, so it's gonna have to have a foundation, it's gonna have that expense. So wouldn't it be better to put in addition onto your existing structure? I don't know. And what stops you from doing that if you needed an extra room for a relative?
What stops me from renting out a room and you not knowing about it?
What keeps me from...
So what, that would be the exact problem with the detached structure in the backyard, right?
Right, but you can't control it. You can't legislate around. I mean, we can keep writing
So why allow
ordinances
it?
all day long, and every year, year after year, these people aren't getting any more liberated. They're not getting any freer. I mean, if you want to be Bloomfield Hills, let's just go grab their ordinance. We'll shape it right into that. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Well, I think that might be pretty accurate description. In 10 to 15 years, what would you like the township to look like? Would you like it to look like Bloomfield Hills or West Bloomfield, or pick another jurisdiction that might not be doing so well?
They're selling ADUs online for $5,000. I can't see an addition on a house costing less than $200,000. So I mean, you're taking the affordability out of these people who don't have any money and just saying, you can't live here, sorry. You might be all set with your retirement, and you might make plenty, you might make plenty, you might make plenty. What about John Mill's grandkids? You know, I mean, what about your kids? Didn't you say you had adult kids that, you know, you wouldn't mind being able to do that for?
The question is if we want to take it back to the planning commission.
To work with our existing
work with their
ordinances,
existing
to streamline a case where there was a family member that needed some additional housing, and what prevents that from happening?
I'm assuming there's two oppositions by the sounds of the discussion so far. Mr. Counts, what do you think? Have any concerns with the planning commission looking at you? Sat there long enough to know.
I just would wonder what else is on the planning commission's docket right now that needs to be addressed, and is that more or less important than this?
I mean, again, I brought this up before, but we've been getting a lot of phone calls about development, and even if a fraction of them happen, the planning commission is going to be busy. They are planning to take up the solar ordinance and make sure that we have something that's up to date. Ours is pretty old. So I mean, they do have stuff on their docket. I'm not saying that they can't handle the ADU. They have been dealing with it for a while, but they do have stuff on their docket for sure.
Why don't we just copy someone else's ADU ordinance? Osceola's, somebody's, Marion's.
I personally like ours. Like I said, I think it's as good as it's going to get, and I would motion that it does not go back to the board to be reworked, back to the planning commission.
So it already has to go back due to the notice requirements that weren't met. So it will go to the planning commission for a public hearing. I think what Tim's request is that during that public hearing and after that, does he have permission to continue to work on it to try to make his case scenario that he brought up possible.
But why do you need our permission for that? Like, if it's gonna go back for a public hearing, and that then means there's gonna be discussion at the planning commission level. Okay, I mean, find a way.
Bring a plan.
Yeah. Bring a plan.
That's what I hear.
And lots of people.
Hmm?
And lots of people to voice their opinions.
Well, there's a public hearing, which is how,
Right.
members of the community voice their opinion on things that happen at the planning commission.
Right, but I'm talking about me inviting many.
So as a point of clarification, we made a motion at the planning commission and it passed to recommend denial.
Right.
Correct.
Because there's a notice problem, we need to reopen and have a public hearing, correct?
Correct.
What happens to that motion?
So essentially, it's kind of like it didn't happen. I know you guys did it, but you have to have the public hearing, so if the planning commission makes the same motion again, then the same action would happen. I mean, obviously, they have an opportunity to make a different motion and a different action to happen, so.
Okay.
I have a question of Mr. Bowl.
Sure.
So Tim, the last planning commission meeting that I attended, we talked about ADUs, and there was a lot of discussion about the rentals for detached, of course, rentals in general. I guess one of the things we asked Paul to do was to look at crafting the ADU ordinance so that it was family member oriented.
Correct.
What was the outcome of that?
So then we discussed the enforcement issue of that, and if you look on our violation list that's currently in our packet, there is a complaint of someone living in a backyard with a trailer. The problem is our zoning administrator can't get back there to find that out. So 10 years from now, we'll have backyards with ADUs, and we'll have the same problem. There'll be an enforcement issue. How do we enforce it? So you're kind of,
So you're concerned that we'll have that problem. Will we have that problem? I don't think we'll know until 10 years from now, right? I think that's the concern, but my question was what Paul didn't come back with anything related to how it could be crafted and centered specifically to family members?
I think it's defined specifically that
Yes.
you've gotta be family.
yes, it was crafted in there.
Okay.
But then it became a question of, is it a bad ordinance because it can't be enforced?
The other issue was legally defining family in a way that will hold up in the courts. So that was an issue that the attorneys worked on. So it's not as simple as we were hoping it was gonna be in trying to limit it to families.
Matt, I think you said at our last meeting, the ordinances are there to guide people, not to stop people. So we're concerned about something 10 years from now, what happens to this tiny home behind somebody's house. It's getting pretty hypothetical.
It's actually written in the planner's report that you can assume ADUs will eventually all become rentals. And that's been proven across the country. Actually, it was, after World War II, it was tried and it was zoned out. So if you research it a little bit further and do some investigation on it, you would find that. So we're kind of reinventing the rule. So.
Okay. So it's going back to planning commission for a public hearing, and then we'll see another motion.
Yeah.
And
I mean, depending on what they do. what the
Depending
motion
on
is.
what happens, right?
Okay.
Okay.
all right. ZB. Go.
Excuse me, one
Yeah.
last note on the planning commission that I've noticed. There's been an effort to steer away from the home occupation ordinance when the board specifically asked the planning commission by motion. It was requested, either send the request to change the zoning ordinance to the planning commission, stays the same, or invest the time and money into redoing all the township zoning ordinances. And it passed with one dissent. However, it made it to the planning commission, and our rogue planning commission decided they would re-steer that and say, well, we won't address it like the board asked us to. We'll go ahead and ask if maybe we can invest time into redoing all the zoning ordinances. So I mean, just let Tim run the planning commission.
That was the intent of
Right.
me coming back to the planning commission with that response, Shane, was to say the board needs to approve funding so we can redo the ordinances. And that was the discussion at the planning commission.
That may have been, but that's not what the board sent to the planning commission. So,
That's why I came back to the board and said, we need funding in order to redo the ordinances.
I get that, but that's not what the board asked them to do. And, yeah, we just asked for it again and again. Chuck's asked for it. That's okay.
All right, ZBA.
There was a resident who came in to ask for a variance on a swimming pool, rear yard setback. They have a corner lot, and so they effectively have 2 front yards, and so it made it difficult to put the swimming pool where it was far enough away from the house. It was approved.
Any questions, ZBA? Anything for wastewater treatment plant additional to the report?
Well, there is, we do need board action. We need the board to make a determination in regards to hatch stamping. Just kind of a brief overview. The whole Transwest Industrial Park was kind of planned quite a while ago. You know, the township had sewer in there so that the industry could come. So the pump station that is right near Hatch has been there for quite a while. Hatch came in and built a plant. I call it Hatch because Hatch is the one who occupies the building. They don't own the building. So the building was built. Hatch has occupied it as long as I've known. I don't know if there was someone else in there before. A couple years ago, they expanded. But due to the topography, the building sits very low, and it actually sits under the where the pump station is. So the pump station only has between half hour and 45 minutes worth of storage space before they will flood Hatch out. It's not ideal. Generally, they want a few hours notice so that they can get someone out there, check it out, assess what's going on, try to remedy the problem. If not, get other equipment and stuff out there. So the problem is that they've had sewage back up into their building numerous times. And so Greg and James went to all this time and effort to craft what would fix their problem. And what fixed their problem is a grinder pump, which pumps under pressure. Would be next to impossible to back up for them based on everything that goes into it. And so Hatch requested that they have a meeting about it. And so Hatch and their representative, the owner's representative, are insisting that this is a township problem and the township should pay for the installation and maintenance of their grinder pump. So, you know, as I stated in the report, Grand Commerce Drive, which is kind of, it's on Grand River, just west of Burkhart, kind of across from the Old Glory Car Wash. There's a little industrial park in there. All of them are on grinder pumps, and they're all installed at the owner's expense. They're all maintained at the owner's expense. The township actually doesn't have grinder pumps on our system that are owned and maintained by the township. So that's where the committee's recommendation is that this really isn't the township's problem. It is in essence, the building owner's problem. And Greg and James did all the work, and all they have to do is make some phone calls and cut a check. But it's up to the board in terms of what is going to be the action for Hatch.
What's the value?
I believe it was over $50,000.
So just to clarify, this grinder pump goes in their building and pressurizes it coming up to our pumping station?
So it's not in their building. It would actually be out near their parking lot. So
It'd still be on their property?
It would be on their property. It would gravity flow to the station, their station, and then from there would pump under pressure to our station.
And that's the only solution to them getting flooded out?
So they installed some backflow preventers in their line between the building and the main where we pick up their sewage. The problem with backflow preventers is it's just a little flap, so debris can get caught in there. And if it's not closed when the back pressure comes, then the sewage still gets into the building.
And who's liable for the sewage that gets in the building?
So under state law, it's written so that they would really have to prove negligence on our part, or MHOG's part, since they operate our sewage treatment plant, for us to be liable.
Okay.
What's your pleasure?
One more question. How many times has it flooded already?
Twice that I know of.
It's been more than twice, I would say maybe 4 times in the amount of time since I've been here.
So were those backflow preventers in place at that time?
For some of them, yes. I don't know about all of them.
Just to be clear, the grade of the building is below the pump station.
So it's at a point where the drain that drains into it, that if there is a backflow event something where the pump stops working, there's just not a lot of time. And the first thing that will happen
But
is their building gets flooded.
The
out.
drain is at a lower elevation than the pumps than the pump station, effectively. That's why it flows back.
Well, so as the station fills up, it'll fill their gravity pipe first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the pump station was in before the building went in. I think it's pretty clear that at that point in time, it's not a township issue.
That's how the committee feels.
I would agree with them, and I guess I wouldn't look at this work as useless. I think if anything happens, we got something to actually stand on now and evidence that why it's happening to them. Where I don't think before we knew why, but now we got proof why, and there was an option. And they chose not to take it.
I would agree.
And it's also hard for me when I know that the township isn't at fault. And you have a company that if you just, I went through and was looking at their website of Hatch, that's the person who's operating in the building, not the owner of the building, but they're bragging about how much they make in a year. And so it's hard for me, for a multi-million-dollar corporation, to say 50,000 is too much to have a fix. So it's hard for me to, commiserate with the owner and the business.
What did we bring to the table other than the design? Were we doing any work? Were we tying it in?
Nope, so it was the design, and it was all of the contractors that could do the work should they decide. So they essentially all they had to do was say yes to the contractors.
We brought them a complete plan,
Yes.
which in and of itself, generally, that's engineering costs. That's
It took time and effort on
Yeah.
Greg and James to do
Yeah.
this, so yeah. And they did it at no cost to Hatch as an act of good faith.
Okay, what's the recommendation, or do you want a motion, or do you just want?
I think it should be a motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
what do you want a motion for?
I move to accept the wastewater treatment plant committee's recommendation to deny Hatch's and the owner's request that the township install the grinder pump at the township's expense.
Support.
Motion by Hohenstein, second by Counts. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else for wastewater treatment?
I believe that is it.
Parks and Recreation.
Reports in there?
Okay. Property Committee? Nothing?
We don't have anything.
Okay. Parks and Recreation Committee.
No, but we will. We have gotten the reports back for the Phase 1 environmental study, so hopefully we'll have something at the next meeting for you.
Okay. Shiawassee Committee, we did meet with the EPA. I had it here somewhere. I don't know what I did with it. Anyhow, Jonathan, Kurt, myself met with EPA Those were
I
all
think some
there.
members from the state were in there.
Yeah. We had state and federal, everything else. We went over the whole process about the park. They knew we were doing the phase 1, the phase 2, so they were gonna reach back out to us. Aha, there it is. Yeah, we sent them the layout of the park. They were gonna reach out to the Eagle and EPA meeting, and we'll set up following meeting later. But it was just a good discussion. I think we brought a lot of attention to it. I think some of them were aware of it, but not all of the details. So I think we'll keep moving forward.
Is there any thought about getting the trees taken out of the river that's been neglected for so long? I mean, it seems like the township has a lot of extra money right now, and
Well, the drain commissioner is committed to doing that. But again, when we see the phase 1 and the phase 2s, the river muck is where the problem is. So he
Right.
doesn't want to go in there and start pulling stuff out and stirring that up. So that's kind of I think what his plan is to start further down and start working back. So that allows, but he's still got to worry about the dam up in Byron, I think was the other concern, is how much water they can take. They're kind of relying on some of these low areas to be the safety zone, not to push too much water to them.
I just think it would be the coolest thing is to put a kayak in here in Howell Township and end up in Saginaw Bay.
If it's clean, yeah, but I don't want to be
Right.
walking through that mud right now.
No, but I mean, until the trees are gone, then the mud's gonna stay there, you know what I mean?
Right.
The trees are what's holding the mud back.
Okay, disbursements.
Move to accept the disbursements as presented and any normal and customary payments for the month.
Support.
Motion by Hohenstein, seconded by Doss. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion by Count, seconded by Bowl. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.